So the funny thing is, uh, to be able to succeed in the art world, you're not allowed to curse here, right? But am I?
Go, go.
No.
Yeah,
Okay.
go, go.
Yeah, you need to be.
Oy,
Good
it's
evening.
really going on me yung intro vid natin
Good evening, good evening. Pats?
Good evening, sir. Sayang si Harry can't be with us today.
Yeah, with a meeting, with an important meeting. What do
Oo,
we
but
have for today, Pats? I'm kind of
oo,
excited. Yeah.
ayun nga kahit wala si Harry, super exciting pa rin ang episode natin tonight. It's a guest. May bago tayong guest. And alam mo naman nag-guest the salary tayo, 'di ba? And one of the episodes we did there was jobs in the art world,
Mm,
'di ba?
mm,
And
mm.
tonight, may mga kausap tayo from that industry. So, very, very exciting yan. So, pasukin na natin.
Sige, papasukin na natin. Or do you want to give more background to the... Or
Ayan.
mamaya... Sige.
Hindi, sige. Para mas dramatic yung entrance nitong guest natin. So, ano lang, co-worker ko from All Care also. He's our creatives director. No?
Mm.
Ang dami niyang gig sa buhay. Ah, uh, he he's a he does a pottery business. He
Mm.
has a cat rescue program.
Mm.
He's a photographer, he's a painter. Sobrang busy guy. Kaya nga sobrang excited ako. Sobrang multifaceted niyang tao. So, I'm super super excited to have him here tonight. So, sige, without further ado, here is Julian Santos. That's well. Kamusta ka? Kamusta ka?
Good. Enjoying.
Uy.
Doing well. Like you said, I've been pretty busy as of late, but yeah, it's nice to do something like this every now and then. So yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
Oo naman. First, ano mo ba to? First time to guest sa isang podcast?
Yeah, actually, this is my first time. So consider my cherry pop.
Oh. Before we
Yun.
start,
Pwede
before
ba
we-
yun sa YouTube?
Pwede yun. Sobrang curious lang ako before we start. Wanted to know two things, Julian, before we go deep into the topics now. Number one, where are you now? As in, ganda ng background. There's a vibe. And number two, what's the drink of choice?
I'm in Cubao X.
Ooh, okay. Nice.
Nice.
I'm having an IPA because they didn't have their stout available. So
Right.
yeah,
I feel like alam mo
kind
yung mga
of wind down.
Right. Alam mo yung mga movies when you would, shoot some scenes, pakita mo na namang scenes to set up the vibe. I feel like Julian with the background, sobrang na-provide yun eh. Like, I'm in Cubao X drinking an IPA. I feel
Alam
like
ka nasa abroad eh.
Yun na.
Yeah, sige. So, yun, Ju, we have a couple questions lang, of course. Medyo, somewhat controversial yung art industry or not, I mean, not the industry itself, but, making it as a career, no? So, that's why we wanted to ask you a couple questions lang. No? So, before we start, we maybe we could have a little bit of your background, maybe college degree, tapos from there anong ginawa mo leading up to now.
So as a national artist, hindi joke. So
Palangka.
Palangka. So I started doing art as a kid actually because my dad is an artist. So he used to illustrate yung mga illustrations sa mga textbooks used for school. So I have very vivid memories of him staying up late every night and me staying up late with him watching him draw. So I carry that all my life, and then I ended up unsurprisingly taking up fine arts for college in UST. So I graduated 2013. Pero after 4 years of doing art, I felt a bit burnt out because not only was I doing art for studies, I was also doing a lot of side gigs as well. So after finishing my thesis, which was a very extensive, very intense process, I decided to kind of cool off a bit from the art world. So I actually hopped from one industry to another. I'm not sure if Pats knows this, but I've had my toes dipped in the training industry, the BPO industry, logistics, trucking, video game development. So I've been here and there and everywhere. But after a while doing corporate, I kind of missed the creative side, my creative side. So after a while, I started looking for a job again. Uh, I did I did a full time painting stint for a year where I just painted. I did shows, and then eventually I found myself in kind of this middle spot, this Goldilocks spot between corporate and being a full time creative by delving into marketing, graphic design, which is basically where I am now, where I work as a creative supervisor for all care. Yeah. How's that
Yeah.
for a summary?
Ako, I guess, ang daming to unpack, no? Um, ako, I'm not sure if this would like digress a bit in our topic, pero super adjacent naman siya. Like ako, all this time, I've been intimidated, Julian, by a lot of by the art industry. Like I would consider myself creative. Nandun naman ako sa level na yun na, oh, piling ko naman, I have ideas, I have some creativity. Pero like to make it or to really pursue it as a career is like a big intimidation for me. Like I think it's like a super unknown for me. Like can you tell us paano yung simula? Paano ka nakakuha ng mga jobs? And parang ano ba part ka ba talaga ng community? How is it like in the art world here in the Philippines? May ganun ba? May mga back channels ba?
Siguro to answer your second question, am I a part of communities? I'd say I'm acquainted with a lot of communities, but not like a full time member. Because there are a lot of organizations and communities that are comprised of artists. But um, every now and then I do collaborations, projects with them, but I've never been a full fledged member of an organization. And I think that's just because of me as a person, my personality. Um, I think I classify myself as like an ambivert. I do well socially, but then I don't like delving in too deep, being too involved when it comes to like large circles of people. So, but being a part of that industry, to answer your first question, I think it started as a kid. No? So, growing up, I was very much encouraged by my family to kind of
Mm.
hone my craft. So from a young age, I would do portraits here and there. People would commission me. I was very lucky to be supported. Even the choice to take up fine arts in university is not a choice that would be very welcomed in an Asian household. but but yeah, my parents very much supported my decision. And I guess it just went all, would you say, uphill or downhill, or I would say the rest is history from there. Like it's jumping from one project to another, and I guess I'd say that's still pretty much how it goes to this day. It's kind of like an extended project management stint.
Right, right. Sorry, Patsa. I know you have some questions there. Pero wanted to follow up on that. Was there a specific, ano ba? Because you're right, no? When you mentioned na pursuing an art degree is not necessarily smiled upon in the Philippines. Like, our families wouldn't celebrate or create tarpaulins for you, right? Pero was there a specific turning point or a moment that you really decided na, oh, I really wanted to pursue a career in this? Kasi like ako, I would think about it na people kung saan sila nakakita ng early success, parang kahit pa paano it would fuel their momentum na, I think I have something about this industry, etc., etc. So they would pursue that. May ganun ka ba? May certain turning point ba, or is it really a conjunction?
I wouldn't say a turning point, because like I mentioned earlier, I've always been surrounded by art and by artists. So mix that with the fact that, as a kid or as a teen, I was very much a hopeless romantic. So there's this notion of being an artist that really drew me in. So yeah, like it wasn't a turning point, more so kind of like it was bound to happen. So yeah.
Like, sorry, last follow-up question. Like, ano ba? As in, this is coming from internal intimidation and I guess insecurities pagdating sa art. Like, bata pa lang ba you really know na you're talented or gifted? Kasi I feel like, especially with some degrees sa art, no, pagagawang ka ng talent something, di ba, bago ka mag-apply. So, do you know na ba talaga early on? Or was it really a product of a lot of practices din talaga? Or early exposure? I don't know.
I guess it's both, no, being self-aware and being exposed, constantly exposed. Because as a kid, a lot of my schoolmates growing up would always kind of request like, "Uy, drawing mo naman si Goku or si whatever," diba? Whoever was the trending anime character at the time, right? So like I always had this kind of like a sense of self-awareness. I have this skill, but then again, it didn't really surprise me all that much because of the fact that I was exposed to it a lot. Because my dad drew every night, so I was very much on the front row, diba? So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, super. So I feel like ang laking bagay din talaga na normalize, no, sa family nyo kasi na, it's just normal to create art. It's normal to keep practicing, etc., etc. Cool. Ang goal. And I feel like relating it with the Filipino-Chinese na it's normal to have businesses. I feel like it's the same trend, no? Pagka ganun, no? Right? How about you, Pats? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm sure
that's a very funny comparison. But yeah.
Yeah, pero not to stereotype, pero diba? I mean, I feel like, yun eh. Kasi
I mean,
normalize.
stereotypes are there for a reason.
Yeah.
Ako, yung question ko is that, kasi from a young age, alam mo na yun nga, magaling ka na mag-drawing, ganyan, nagpapadrawing yung mga classmates mo, ganyan. And by college, you pursued your passion, di ba? At that point ba, nung college ka, alam mo parang magiging national artist ako, ganyan. Or parang, sige, pursue ko to sa career talaga. Yung painting, di ba? So, di ba, kasi, you haven't mentioned, pero di ba, your BS painting, right? From UST.
Yeah. BFA, Bachelor of Fine Arts, major in painting. Yeah.
Ayun, yeah. So, naisip mo na ba na, ano kayang after college? Magpe-paint ba ako? Or ano kaya magiging trabaho ko after? Naisip mo ba yun? Or how did that come about?
I think it's funny that you mentioned that, because up until this point, I've been sounding like my young self, very romantic, But college for me was the start of kind of like a new perspective when it comes to art. I learned, and maybe this isn't the experience for everybody, but looking back, I believe that I could have pursued something more worth my time for college. So that's coming from somebody who grew up, loving art. I think I needed to experience it then to realize it. But going through art school just opened myself up to the fact that everybody has their own style, their own practice. Like you can very much teach the basics, but apart from that, it's up to the artist talaga to develop his or her their own kind of identity when it comes to the art world. So it's kind of like a an adventure of sorts, where I believe you only need to be taught the fundamentals, and then the artists themselves will take it the rest of the way. So in that sense,
But
a traditional educational background, I believe, is not the best way to hone one's abilities as an artist. So fun fact for you guys, before I started my junior year in college, I was actually considering shifting to med school.
Mm.
hindi
So
ko to
that
alam.
was,
Hindi ko to alam.
yeah. So I had a lot of friends in med school at the time, and they were all persuading me to shift since it was my second choice naman din talaga. Um, I think that comes from the Asian part in the family.
I was
Be a
about to
doctor,
say,
be a lawyer. Yeah, so like a part of me kind of, had a eureka moment that what if I took up something actually practical. So but again, the very Asian part of me kind of spoke back and said, "Ano ba yan? You already spent 2 years, tapos you're gonna move pa." So I kind of decided against it eventually. But yeah, that was a very important learning for me in college. Na I think uh, the most valuable lessons in art can't be learned in a classroom.
Right. Pero if you're going to retake college, magpe-pre-med ka.
Gagi, neurosurgeon na ako ngayon, kung gano'n.
At tutuloy mo talaga. Like, ngayon with the
Oh yeah.
awareness.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think it's not simply because of art per se, no. It's because of a multitude of factors, which I was hoping we'd touch on then. Art is very much dictated by so many factors, especially society. So us definitely living in a third world country, where art is not as valued and appreciated as in a first world country. Definitely, that I believe that should make for an informed decision if you're deciding whether or not you want to pursue art for your future. Because I mean, it's no joke about choosing a career path. It's not all like aspirations or the overused term or statement to pursue your passion.
Yeah.
More so for us in a third world society, we have to very much consider all the other factors, survivability. So if you were to ask me what I would do if I were to go back in time, I believe I would take up medicine. But then I don't think that by saying that I'm giving up on art, because like I said, art should art can't be learned fully in a classroom. So I believe I still would have gone down that path, although maybe as like a secondary thing. Diba? But yeah, that's just my take on it.
Right. So, tama no? Like, ang dami kong questions na follow-up sana. Pero, I want to circle back dun sa isa muna when you were talking about when you teach art na just teaching about the fundamentals or the technicalities of it, and then everyone has a style. Ako kasi, BS chemistry ako eh. And now, I'm in tech. So, for me, yung nakuha ko sa chem is the observational skills. Like, when we used to have an aquarium with a guppy there, and then susulat lang namin ano yung ginagawa namin sa guppy. And yun, na-translate ko siya into my jobs na ginagawa na in-observe ko yung data, patterns, etc. Do you have something like that na when you talk about the fundamentals of art, or ano yung mga nakuha mo sa art school na sobrang nag-translate sa iba't ibang work mo?
I think art is a lot of like I feel like everybody has the capacity to learn art because a lot of the lessons I learned in college, when I learned them, I just went, so that's what that was. Because like for example, um, you are looking at an Instagram feed and you find it very pleasant, right?
Mm.
There's a reason behind that. Maybe it's the color combination or the composition of the content or the pictures in the content. But when it's explained to you, then you have a better understanding of it. But I feel like it's very much innate. Like everybody has this deep-seated, very personal appreciation of things, appreciation of art. Diba? So I think that's one fundamental that I learned. Um, but 'cause it's so hard then because art is so subjective. So I guess the other fundamental things that I learned was, funnily enough, I'm gonna say this now, even though I found it so boring, was theory, diba? Like
Mm.
learning the, the backstory. I feel like if you really delve deeper into the theory, then you'll kind of uncover how art affects society and vice versa, and how it just grows and evolves as time passes by. Definitely, a lot of these lessons, uh, it's really easy to take them at face value, but to be fully appreciative or to fully appreciate the lessons, I feel like you really just have to kind of delve in deeper, like
Right.
interpret it, like read between the lines, stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. Right. Ang ganda. Na at the end of the day, yung theory din na gamit. And I liked what you said na it can really be taught something like that. Not to sound too romantic, Julia. No, you mentioned some of this kanina. Pero is there such a thing as purity in terms of pursuing a career for you? Like I feel like this would the reason I'm asking this is that with this context with art, I feel like, or I'm curious if that is a subject. Like if you're going to be an artist, dapat ba purely artist ka lang? I know you're multifaceted. Or parang okay lang ba na for you, no? Na okay lang, pursue your your living. You can still be considered you can still be a pure artist on the weekends. I'm not, again, I'm maybe too much too existential, but I hope you can humor me on this.
If you're putting it that way, then I'm very, very impure, you guys. But I like anything in life. No, I don't believe that everything should be held in absolutes. I remember not too long ago there was this very trending, very flammable statement that was going around online. Now, if you don't draw 15 minutes every day, then don't consider yourself an artist, right? I'm not sure if you guys or if you guys saw that. So that guy who posted that, he's actually an acquaintance of mine. We were in the same college together. Um, and although I understand where he's coming from because I know the context behind his statement and I know him as a person, I don't necessarily agree with it. Because art, like a lot of things in life, especially creative things in life, same with literature, music, it's very personal. So one can't really define your journey as an artist or your artworks, nor can they kind of put you in a box and say, your approach is pure or impure. I think it's up to the artist to dictate how much they want to focus on being just an artist, like a full-time artist, or whether or not they want to kind of dabble in different things in life. And I think that's something that needs to be more kind of encouraged here in the Philippines, because I think it's such a it could potentially be dangerous when you just tell people to just pursue their passion. I'm so against that statement because it just throws away all of the practicalities to the gutter. Because there are so many things to consider. Even though even though you might have the skill, even though you might have the time, maybe you don't have the money, maybe you don't have the space. But people, instead of recognizing the fact that there are these other factors to consider, they just kind of put pressure on themselves to become what society is telling them to become. So, with regards to your question, um, I definitely do not agree, nor do I encourage artists or anybody for that matter to be so boxed in or to pressure themselves in to fit a certain ideal.
Right. Thanks for giving your thoughts on that. And be like hearing it from an actual artist, like really um fixed some insecurities or really lessen the pressure for, I guess, for someone like me na been pondering din, oh, maybe art is something I can pursue. Like yung mga ganun. Pero parang ako kasi purity dapat if I'm going to do it. Dapat pure lang. Artist lang tayo. Palahaba na ng hair. Alam mo yun, the stereotypes na naman. But thanks for that, Julian. Really self-serving questions, self-serving curiosity, but thankful for sharing your opportunity on that. Pats.
Ang ganda, ang ganda. Pero sige, step back muna tayo from the art world. Alam ko marami ka pang ibang ginagawa bukod sa bukod sa sa pag-art. Sorry for the term. Sorry for the term. Pero let's talk about the crazy cat dude, 'di ba? Of course, kung hindi niyo kilala si Ju, he rescues cats and then pinapa-adopt niya rin, no? So, tell us about that, how it came about and yung mga programs mo to support that cause.
We're probably gonna need another hour for that. um, yeah, the crazy cat dude. So I think it goes back to my upbringing then. So I've always grown up around animals. My family's always had animals: dogs, parrots, fish. So until now, my dad still takes care of fish, and we still have. I have a Rottweiler at home as well. And it's that kind of love for animals that just grew and grew over time. That kind of eventually led me to want to do something more uh, worthwhile with my time and money. So it started the Crazy Cat Dude. That's the name of my nonprofit organization. I started it at the start of the year, this year, because I also wanted to make my efforts more public. But even before the Crazy Cat Dude, I've been feeding, taking care of cats. Um, but the funny thing about it is, I didn't used to be a cat person. I wasn't a cat person before, but um, I think 3 years ago now, somebody dumped two baby kittens redundant, but yeah, kittens in front of my house, and I had no choice but to take care of them because definitely I wouldn't just leave them there. And that kind of made me realize that cats are so misunderstood. Much like how aspens used to be misunderstood, but over the past decade, it's been so nice to see that the image of the aspen has been rehabilitated, and more people are opening their doors to aspen. So I started the Crazy Cat Dude in an attempt to kind of change that image and to rehabilitate and re-educate people about stray cats, because not unlike aspens, puspins also deserve loving homes. They're also living beings. They
Experience.
experience pain and hardships like we do, and they definitely deserve to have a better future. Because every day they're exposed to hardships on the streets, and it's not their choice naman. So yeah, I feel very strongly about that, and um, I've always been the type of person to want to pursue and do things that I know will be impactful. So yeah, that's something I've been recently doing.
Right. So I'm curious, Julian, like kapag ka, like what can we do like as listeners, no? Like parang pag may nakita kaming stray cats in a certain area, can we just PM you? Instagram ba to, the crazy cat dude, and then
Yeah,
like
so
do you
it's
have
on
a plan with it?
Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the Crazy Cat Dude PH. I think like a lot of issues in our country, right? A lot can be solved by simple education. So there are a lot of misunderstandings about stray cats, and I feel like just being able to educate ourselves to be more informed about what they're like um, helps a lot already, because a lot of cats suffer because of misunderstandings. This notion na parating masungit ang pusa, madumi yan, ganyan. It's not always the case. So, uh, and I mean, in our time, it's no longer an excuse, I believe, to be misinformed, because we have all the means available to us to be educated. So, I think that's a very easy first step into helping. Um, ako, what I've been doing lately is that I've been encouraging people to spay and neuter their cats. By doing so, kasi you're not only are you kind of avoiding the risk of cancer and a lot of other diseases associated with their hormones, you're also controlling the population of cats. So, if you guys didn't know, cats can get pregnant for just 4 months after they give birth.
Wild.
So
Wild.
yeah, they usually give birth to around three, an average of three kittens. So in a span of a year, that's
That's nice.
what
Yeah.
12 kittens in a year,
Right.
right? And so spaying and neutering is something that I've been telling a lot of people about, and I'm not surprised when people respond with, ah, gusto ko sana pero mahal. But actually, there are a lot of low cost capon centers in town already. For as low as 350, you can have your cat neutered. So something like that lang. Be informed and spread the message to other people. I think that's something everybody can do.
Hmm. Got
Ganda.
it. Yeah.
Ganda. No, ano, 'di ba, I believe the Crazy Cat Dude is technically an NGO, 'di ba? And nabalitaan ko through your Instagram kasi na yung pottery classes nyo, yung mga proceeds nun minsan napupunta dun sa program, gano'n. So, ang galing lang kasi parang nako-connect nyo siya sa isa't isa, 'di ba? So, paano nyo naiisip yon, or paano nyo how do you come up with this stuff?
When it comes to that, it's more of a necessity kasi talaga eh. So,
Mm.
rescuing, as you guys may imagine, is not an easy thing to do. Both both in terms of effort, time, and especially money. So last year, when I was just doing this all on my own and I didn't start the Crazy Cat Dude yet, I spent in excess of 100,000 pesos just for treating cats.
Wild.
Yeah,
Wild.
all from my own pocket lang. So it was both a wake up call for me and uh, uh, a very painful realization na I can't do this on my own talaga. So that was what made me decide to bring it public, make it public, and that's what's been pushing me to kind of come up with all these ideas to raise funds. So like Pat said, earlier this year, I collaborated with my partner who owns a pottery studio to host a class where all of the proceeds will be donated to the rescue. And
Hmm.
it was because of that class, because we had over 30 students. We Because of that class, we were able to spay and neuter 28 cats in Metro Walk in Ortigas. So spaying, yeah, that's really the first step talaga to controlling their population. So yeah, that class was such a big help. Pats would know this. Not too long ago, then I hosted an exhibit in Maginhawa in QC where I displayed my photography and I sold prints to raise funds then for the cat. So Pats
Mm.
was one of the very generous patrons. So yeah,
Nice.
you're if you're in the non-profit industry, you're going to be forced talaga to kind of conjure up ideas to raise funds. So yeah.
Ang galing, ang galing. And nasa akin pa yung ano na yon, JD, yung print na yon. Binili namin together ni Quix. Of course, to support Julian's cause. No? And also kasi yung photographs were very fascinating. Papakita ko sa inyo pag may pag nakuha ko ulit siya. Kasi nasa room ni Quix ngayon. It was very very nice.
Hindi, ito, bro. Ano to? Magic of editing. Actually, papakita na natin now. Turo ka lang kahit saan. Papakita natin kung saan mo gusto.
Kasi
Turo ka lang saan. Yan. Lalabas yan dyan.
yan yung picture.
Yan.
Yeah. No, it was very fascinating. Pero yeah, sige. Jump back lang ako with the career stuff, no. Nabanggit mo kasi kanina na nag-BPO ka tapos nag-game development nasa game development nga, hindi ko alam 'yon. So, kwentuhan mo naman kami anong nangyari doon before you jump back into or before finding that Goldilocks spot nga as you progress sa career mo.
The BPO thing, so I took that up as a job when I was still in college. So I started working full time for the first time in my life back in 2011. I was third year in college and I wanted to make extra money so that I wouldn't have to ask for allowance from my parents. And I decided to take up freelance jobs, and I decided to take my writing skills and my speaking skills to help other people converse. No? So that's basically how that was. I was a trainer for a customer service company. I did that for 5 years. That's still my longest job to date. Um, it was very convenient. Yeah, I would go to UST. I would leave the house 6, and then I would be in school until like 7. Then I would get home at 8, have dinner, and then I would start working at 9, and I would end at around 1. So that was what my life was for my last 2 years of college. But the other industries, it was just more of just taking opportunities as they come. A lot of them were referrals, and a lot of them promised a very generous pay and good benefits. And I decided to kind of take advantage of the opportunities that were given to me, because those opportunities are definitely not easy to come by here. So yeah, that's why I leapfrog from industry to industry, and eventually I got tired of the corporate world, and I I wanted to do something creative again. Um so it was 2016, I believe. I resigned, and then I did one whole year of just painting, and then I realized, shucks, I miss my sweldo. So um I decided to settle for something in between, which is yeah, very fortunate to be able to find opportunities.
Right. So, a follow-up question on that. I didn't realize na 5 years ka pala sa BPO. I started sa BPO then. Like parang, I feel like sinasabi ko nga dito, it's a cheat sheet if you want to improve your English skills. Kasi the training itself, sobrang galing, di ba? I'm curious, no, within those 5 years, did you try, or paano siya nakatulong dun sa art mo? Like, are you trying different stuff because of that? Were you forced na to experiment at all? Or na-pent up lang talaga yung art energy kaya parang you spent a year just painting?
No, actually, a factor that people may overlook a lot is that art is very expensive. So definitely you could, make art with just the Mongol number two pencil and paper, but to be able to make, like, for example, a watercolor painting, if you opt for cheap paints, it's definitely going to impact your artwork compared to the more expensive artist grade paints. So what I did back then was, I would work a corporate job, and I would use the money to fund things I'm passionate about. So whether that's painting, fine art, or photography, or whatever it is, that's that was my way to enable those passions.
Right. Galing, galing. So, oh ano, I didn't realize na it could be expensive. I thought mura lang yung mga paints, but yeah, I mean like mahal nga naman talaga. Let's go.
Tama, tama. Hindi, naalala ko, sinasamahan ko yung ate ko sa Jollies. Mahal, mahal nga yun. Mahal nga yung mga bilihin doon. But anyway, kasi, yun nga, you have a lot of experience in a lot of different industries. Paano mo nahanap or paano ka nakapag-decide na parang, okay, graphic design, ito na yun? Or parang, did you have prior experience before doing that? Kasi, alam ko, I mean, graphic design is very, very different from painting or other art forms. So, paano mo naisip na parang, okay, ito na yung magiging career?
I feel like all forms of art, fine visual art that is linked to. This is gonna sound very vague, but I feel like if you have artist listeners, they'll be able to relate. It all boils down to the eye. So being able to see what is aesthetically pleasing, I feel like that is the root of visual art. So graphic design still follows that principle. It's not. It takes some what do you call this? It takes some things from painting and then some from marketing and stuff like that, and it mashes them all together. But at the end of the day, it's about making something that is visually pleasing. And I believe I had that capability naman to determine what is visually pleasing or not. And to answer your question, no, Pat, I came to that realization that I wanted to do something in between those like two ends of the spectrum, the corporate world and the art world, because I needed a way to both give myself fulfillment in the form of creating art, but at the same time accepting the reality of things, and that, you know taking up a job that will give me financial security and growth in the long run. So that's how I ended up there. It wasn't like ano naman, like it may sound like I did it begrudgingly, but actually it wasn't a very hard decision to make naman, because the more you think about what it takes to thrive and live in our society, the more you realize na I can make it work, maybe just not how I initially imagined, but that's what it takes. We
Mm.
can't always live um, in an ideal, or we can't always pursue something that is very idealistic.
Yup, yup, yup. I agree, I agree. Pero, siguro may follow-up question lang ako doon kasi I mean, madaling isipin na, okay, you know what, kaya ko tong gawin. Magaling ako, ito yung skills ko, kaya ko tong gawin. But how did you prove that to your employers na parang, okay, wala, hindi ko nagawa before itong graphic design, but I do know art. Paano ba yan? Nagpakita ka ba ng portfolio or anong nangyari doon?
So the funny thing is, to be able to succeed in the art world, you're not allowed to curse here, right? But am I? No. Okay. Yeah, you need to be. It's funny because you can be successful in the art world without being good at the at art. You just have to be good at bullshitting. So um, the more you can market your work to other people, the better you are as an artist, diba? I think that's the sad reality of things because a lot of artists with actual with skill talaga, technical skill, are often overlooked because they don't have the social skills and the marketing skills to match. But that's definitely what it takes. I feel like you have to be able to learn that to a degree to be able to upsell yourself to somebody. So for example, me coming from fine arts and delving into graphic design, I didn't really have a lot of graphic design work to show in my portfolio. So what I would do is in interviews I would show my fine art work, my best fine art work. And I would convince my potential employer that I would be able to apply something that visually appealing for the benefit of their company. So eventually, throughout the years, I was able to build um, a portfolio of graphic design. But that's definitely not where I didn't start with just things to present. Yeah.
Ito, sobrang tama no? It's really building the pro. Ang ganda ng sinabi mo na a lot of BS lang. Pero I feel like it's the marketing, it's the communication skills. And congrats, Julian. The first curse word, I guess, in our 38 episodes now. So, para kang what do you call that? Guardians of
Just
the
keeping it
Galaxy.
real.
Just giving it real. Giving it real. Sobrang stupid question if you may know. Pero why is it called fine arts? Bakit there's the need to add the fine there? Bakit hindi siya parang arts na lang? Sobrang curious lang. Was it taught ba or was it explained sa school?
I don't know. I probably think it was a bunch of artists who came up with that term and they just wanted to be pretentious and they're like, this art is very fine, so let's call it fine art. I don't know, man. Like, I would call it visual arts, right? Because it's very, it's not like music or literature. But with regards to like the etymology of fine arts, now that you ask me about it, like I'm not really sure where it came from. At the same time, I find it funny when they call it fine arts, yeah, because it's not always fine. Yeah.
Ay, nako. Alright.
Hindi, ang galing. Buti naisip mo yun, JD. Ang witty mo dun sa fine arts, ah. Sa fine arts question. Ano, baka i-google ko na mamaya yan. Or baka yung mga audiences natin, baka alam nila. So, comment down below.
Hindi niyo alam yung fine arts.
Hindi ko alam bakit fine arts. Ako, bash kami
Artist
dito.
pero hindi alam bakit fine arts.
Ay,
Tama. Pero it's a very witty question. Pero, of course, Joe, with all the, I would say, successes mo sa career mo as an artist and also as a corporate man, no? Ano naman yung mga biggest challenges mo so far, and ano kaya yung mga common misconceptions or challenges na rin ng mga aspiring artists maybe here in the Philippines?
I'm glad you asked that because I feel like it's not discussed as much here. But I touched on it earlier. Now I believe that the art world here, or rather our country or our country is not as appreciative of art as other countries. But I believe there's so many factors to that. The fact that we are an impoverished country, people don't. Not a lot of people have the extra funds. Not a lot of people are like Patsin na may disposable income lang to buy prints, art prints, diba? So art collector. But that's the reality of things, diba? People have other expenses on their mind. So, we're artists are not as supported in our country, sad to say. And that definitely reflects on pay. So if you're a full-time painter, you have to really be good at socializing and building connections and marketing yourself and just pumping out works consistently. Um, and if you're in the graphic design industry, you have to be able to mix that design skill with other skills like marketing, maybe animation. So you have to be more flexible than your contemporaries, let's say in a first world country. Um, and I feel like that's very much evident in the fact that a lot of first world companies export, or they, what's the term, they they use our labor to supply them with what they need, because they're in their society where the value of art is very much recognized and supported, their rates are much more higher. So if you're an aspiring artist and you feel like you're gonna make it big, I'm sorry, but it's not always the case here. Um, so that's one of the challenges, definitely. The other challenge is, I would say, kasi for example, in my case, like I said earlier, I have to balance like the corporate aspect and the art aspect. So maintaining that balance is also a challenge, I believe. Because if you go over too much into the marketing side in my case, then it gives me less fulfillment, right? And if I delve more into the art side, then I'll just be berating my team members about how this particular campaign is not going to be, diba? You have to be a team player, so you have to balance it out then. Um, what else? Other challenges? Opportunities, I'd say. Opportunities are also a bit harder to come by. Um, I think that relates to the first point I brought up. And siguro the last one that's on my mind right now is uh, a lot of the circles, and this may be a controversial thing to say, no, but a lot of the circles um, that artists need to be in to thrive in are not exactly the most healthy circles to be in. So, like for example, the design industry, really big ad agencies. They're very notorious for having a very toxic kind of workflow. And sometimes, the artists that I know who make their living in these industries, they have no choice but to accept that kind of work environment to be able to sustain themselves. So I guess those four are the ones that I can think of the most right now when it comes to challenges in the art industry.
Tama, tama. Ang galing, galing. Yun nga, maraming ano dito yung mga starving artists, no? And ganda nung sinabi mo about the opportunities, sobrang limited. Pero napansin ko rin na ngayon, ang dami ko nakikitang positions kasi on LinkedIn or like on Caliber na parang art director, ganyan. Or yung mga ganon.
Pasend
So,
naman pa-link sa akin.
Hindi, hindi. PM ka na lang. Hindi, pero ang dami or 'di ba with the rise of NFTs, mas dumami yung opportunities for artists today. But yeah, ganda. Siguro last thing na lang, Ju. Anong advice mo for any aspiring artists out there, and would you recommend being an artist here in a third world country?
Mag-doktor na lang kayo. Hindi, joke lang. um, what would I recommend to aspiring artists, or what advice would I be able to give? First is, I think, stay true to yourself. Don't let other people dictate to you what is good and what is bad, whether your work is good or bad. Um, Definitely there are levels to your art journey, but that's up to you, right? Where you want to take your art, I believe, should be up to you and not the people around. The second thing is, and I feel like this is very, very important for artists in our country at least. Is that the fact that you have to recognize the realities of life here in the Philippines. So, like I was saying earlier, we are a third world country whose society isn't as appreciative of the fine arts scene. And I believe that's something that you can't skirt around talaga. Because if you're going to build your future around art, you have to be able to recognize that you to have the capability to pay the bills. If you're planning to build a family in the future, you need to plan for that, especially if you're going to delve into an industry that can be considered niche in our society, right? So, don't let people tell you to pursue your passion, whatever you're doing, do what you love to do. I believe that's such toxic positivity, right? You have to accept that you need to do something sometimes, or maybe a lot of times, that isn't exactly something that you like doing. Maybe something na sucks lang, di ba? But it's enough to pay the bills. And that's the reality of the situation. Not everything you're going to be doing is something that you absolutely love doing. But at the same time, don't fall into the pit of negativity thinking na, oh, I live in this country where I can't sell my works, or I can't make it to this level in the industry. You can still do art, right? You can mix. Art is so flexible. I guess the one thing that I agree with that friend of mine that posted that very flammable statement is the fact that you can do art anywhere, anytime, with as little or as much materials that you have. Right? You can have just a small sheet of paper and a pencil. You can make art. You can have a full studio and you can make art, or you can't make art, right? So, like, you as an artist are not limited by what you have. Your skills, your practice, you can make art with so many different materials that are easily accessible, even when you recognize that we are in a very challenged society. So I think those two balance it out, recognizing yourself as an artist and recognizing the ecosystem that you're in. I feel like if you have a proper grasp of those two things, then you'll be able to make informed choices that will benefit you as an artist.
Ayun, yun. Thank you so much. Ang ganda, ganda. Really enjoyed this episode, Joe. Sobrang thank you. I hope our audiences learn a thing or two. If they're an aspiring artist, no, or not, pwede rin naman. Ako, hindi naman ako artist, pero sobrang dami ko natutunan with this episode. And sobrang kakaiba niya. Sobrang, it's a very different flavor from all our previous episodes, which makes this unique, no? So, super thank you for your time, Ju. And yeah, where can people reach you if ever they want to?
Yeah, where can they reach you, Julian, kung gusto nilang kumonect, etc.?
You can reach out to me on Instagram. If you want to reach out to me for art purposes, you can find my art account at Studio Giuliano. I'll type that in here so you can there. And if you want to reach out to me for my rescuing, for anything about cat rescuing, you can visit the Crazy Cat Dude PH on Instagram.
If ever you guys want to reach out or papakommission kayo, yan, alam niyo na.
Baka ano na ngayon, Jujutsu Kaisen na ba? Jujutsu Kaisen. Yan na yung mga sikat na anime ngayon. Baka hindi papadrawing kay Julian. Ay, nako. Salamat ng marami again, Julian.
Thank you so much.
For all the questions. This has been another episode of Todo Career. See you next time. Bye.